Good afternoon in the East and good morning in the West. Thank you for joining us for this kickoff event as we mobilize faith communities for a celebration of the sun on September 21st. For those of you who are accustomed to joining Michael, Malcolm, and myself for our monthly Creation Justice webinar, we have decided to change things up this month and the next. Different times call for different measures, and now is a time to be even more action oriented. Today, we have a lineup of speakers to get us fired up and prepared for a National Day of Climate Action. September 21st will be a day to celebrate the gift and power of clean energy while standing up to the profiteers, polluters, and potentates who threaten our health and future. Our plan is to hear from three guest speakers, to view a special message from Bill McKibben, and then to have the Reverend Michael Malcolm bring it all home for us as he gives us a theological framing to our call for action and mobilization. Toward the end, we will have time for questions any of you might have about the day of action or anything our speakers have said. Today, I'll be introducing each speaker before they speak. Up first, we have one of the instigators of this National Day of Action. Along with Bill McKibben and others, Jim Antal was part of the brain trust that conceived and instigated this event. Many of you know Jim as a former conference minister, as the denominational leader on climate justice, and as the author of the popular book, Climate Church, Climate World. Jim, get us started for today.
Thanks, Brooks. I'm proud to share with you that the UCC is the first, and certainly not the last, national body to sign on as a key organizer of Sunday. On September 21st, 2025, mark your calendars, UCC churches will join with people from scores, perhaps hundreds of organizations throughout the United States to celebrate the gift and power of clean energy and the urgent need to stand up to, and this is a phrase from Brooks, the profiteers, polluters, and potentates who threaten our health and our future. For 50 years, the UCC has been a committed leader in environmental and climate leadership. And our hope is that 1,000 or more UCC churches will dedicate their worship and other activities on September 21st to the theme of bringing climate hope to Sunday. You can think of Sunday as a counterpart to Earth Day that's near the autumnal equinox. After worship, churches can join with other local Sunday organizers and host community events, e-bike and EV parades, rallies and concerts, protests and teach-ins, all celebrating solar, wind, and battery power and the movement to leave fossil fuels behind. Now is the time to make sure that your church has set aside September 21st. I'll put a link in the chat to the website for sunday.earth. I'll also put a link in the chat to an article I've just posted that provides all the information you will need to participate in Sunday. Sunday was launched a few weeks ago at a multi-faith worship service held at Boston's Old North Church, the same church from which Paul Revere launched the American Revolution. That service featured Bill McKibben, Diana Butler Bass, Lennox Yearwood, and other luminaries. The mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu, she wrapped it up while gently holding her infant child. After an inspiring call to action, she threw a switch and suddenly the steeple where Paul Revere once stood was illuminated in a glorious green light. And at that same moment, many of Boston's buildings and bridges were all likewise illuminated in a glorious green light, all to mark the official launch of organizing for September's big Sunday celebrations, rallies, protests, and teach-ins. What better way to launch the revolution America needs now than with a multi-faith worship service celebrating the universal free, and unlimited gift of energy from the sun and wind given by our Creator. I helped organize that worship service, and I can certainly confirm that Bill McKibben is thrilled that the UCC is an early endorser of Sunday. We'll hear from Bill in a minute, but before we do, I want to take you back 55 years. In 1970, no one imagined that an unknown ragtag group of organizers could succeed in getting our federal government to enact laws and legislate rules that would protect land, water, air, flora, fauna, and humans. But when 20 million Americans showed up in the streets and parks and lecture halls in every part of the country, the mandate was clear and change happened. In the decades since that first Earth Day, the scientists and engineers have done their job. They have given us all the technology we need to power our lives and our economy with clean, renewable energy. Now it's up to us. It's up to our generation, whatever generation you may be part of, to celebrate the fact that we can do this. We can make all the transition we need to clean, God given renewable energy a reality, not only for those who can afford it, but for the least of these among us. Let's make Sunday a day filled with the light of truth and the promise of hope. A day that reveals a just and secure future, not only for us, but for all of God's creation. Thank you. And now let's hear from Bill McKibben.
Hey, friends. Man, it's fun to get to join you for this faith launch of Sunday, which, man, it's starting to explode. And the reason that it's starting to explode is because we have good news to share, because we have a vision for the future to share. People haven't figured it out yet. People still think of sun and wind as alternative energy, but it isn't. It is the straightforward way to the future now. Around the planet, we put up a gigawatt's worth of solar panels. That's the equivalent of a coal-fired or nuclear power station every 18 hours now. That's only in the last 12 or 15 months that that's been happening. It's about 15% below the pace that we need to hit to get really on track for the Paris Accords, but we can do that. We can, if we spread the enthusiasm that we have to the rest of the country and the world, then we have every possibility of making this go even faster. And as we do, we stand some chance of blunting the worst of climate change. We save the 9 million lives a year that are lost to breathing the byproducts of fossil fuel combustion, and we free ourselves from the tyranny of the oligarchs who control those scarce deposits of coal and gas and oil, be they the Koch brothers or the king of Saudi Arabia or Vladimir Putin or whoever. Nobody controls the sun and wind. Nobody can hoard them. This is energy from heaven, not from hell, and there's nobody better placed to spread that message than y'all. I cannot wait to see everything that you come up with and to help in every way that I can. God bless y'all, and we will see each other soon.
All right. What an awesome video. We will post that to YouTube and make it available to anyone who would like to share it with friends, family, and church members. Now, let me introduce you to Susan Mueller, who is a Climate Hope organizer for the United Church of Christ. Sue has been leading the charge for us in countless ways to organize events and to help launch our Climate Hope affiliate chapters across the country as they work to protect and advance federal legislation that addresses the interconnected crises of climate change and societal injustice. Sue, what can you tell us about the ways churches can prepare for Sunday?
Good afternoon. Now that Jim and Bill have fired us up for Sunday, I want to share with you about some tangible ways we will be bringing climate hope to Sunday. For September 21st, we are going to provide advocacy cards to churches free of charge so that you can collect the written messages of your members and then deliver them in person to local offices of your members of Congress. As we're witnessing right now, Congress desperately needs to know that their constituents want clean energy. The unique thing about our advocacy cards is that they will feature the winning artwork from this year's Climate Hope Art Contest for children and youth. For a bit of inspiration, let me refresh your memory about the art contest. This year's theme was Planting Seeds of Hope, and the creativity and care from our children and youth were incredible. We announced our winners in April, and if you'd like to view the award show, Kieran is putting the link in the chat. We're proud to celebrate our age group winners and showcase the overall winner, whose artwork will appear in this year's Climate Hope advocacy cards. Their art reminds us why we do this work. It's about the future, about nurturing the world with these young artists will inherit. Under 6 category is Sarah, and her artwork is on the bottom left. And in our age group from 7 to 9 is Jolena on the top right. And Eloise in the 10 to 13 age category is in the top left. And Molly on the bottom right is in the age categories for 14 to 18. And our overall winner is Natalie from Bethlehem UCC in Evansville, Indiana. While we don't have the postcard design finalized, you can expect to see Natalie's art as well as having space on the back of the postcard to write a personal message. Our theme for September 21st will be bringing climate hope to Sunday. And what will this involve? It's a day of worship and witness. It's about combining liturgical prayer and public action. We are encouraging every congregation to host a Climate Hope Sunday service and invite members to fill out Climate Hope advocacy cards to be presented to their members of Congress. These cards are a way for people in the pews to say, make the most of God's gift, the sun. We need policies that create more than clean energy. And here's our working timeline. Church registration begins today. Deadline to register your church is August 8th. Cards shipped by September 1st. And September 21st, Sunday. Churches begin delivering their cards to Congress members in October and November. We're in the midst of creating a toolkit for bringing climate hope to Sunday, and it will include worship resources, which include liturgy, sermon starters, prayers. It'll also include promotional tools such as newsletter blurbs, social media graphics. It'll also have event planning tips and suggestions for writing your message to your congressperson. The toolkit will be designed to support churches of all sizes and contexts, urban, rural, and everything in between. So let's talk about the cards themselves. As I mentioned earlier, registration begins today. Registration is pretty self-explanatory, but here's something to think about before ordering your cards. Congregations can register for bundles of 50 cards, which is perfect for small churches. They can register for bundles of 100 to 150 cards, which is great for mid-sized congregations and outreach events. And they can register for 200 cards, which is perfect for large churches and those doing community tabling. These cards are free of charge and they will be mailed directly to the address of your choosing. Each one features the winning youth artwork on the front and a place to write the message to Congress on the back. And we'll provide guidance for distributing, collecting, and mailing the cards to ensure they have maximum impact. So what's next? You register your congregation today by ordering your climate advocacy cards, and liturgical resources will be available soon so you can start planning your worship service. And most important, spread the word. So let's bring Climate Hope Sunday. It's not just an event, it's a movement. And we are so very grateful to have you be a part of it. Back to you, Brooks.
Thank you, Sue. That was a terrific presentation, and from experience, I can say that the slideshow of this year's art contest finalists can be a great conversation starter at a church for reflecting upon what it is that moves us, inspires us, drives us to act. Up next, we have with us the Reverend Dr. Davida Foy Crabtree. Davida has long been known as a leader in the United Church of Christ and beyond. Her leadership skills are now on full display in her role organizing on behalf of the climate organization Third Act. Davida serves as Third Act's Connecticut Volunteer Engagement Leader. Davida, share with us about some of the exciting things you've been working on, and it would be great to hear as well any tips you might have for those stepping into the pulpit on September 21st.
I should be better than that. Great to be with you. I have to say, as one who just turned 81 years old, I have been loving working with Third Act and serving as an organizer. You know, the truth is, I didn't need training in community organizing because of my education in ministry. Organizing is all about people. Some organizations make it all about whatever the cause is, but Third Act and Sunday are making it all about the people. And that makes a huge difference in the way we go about it. I'm co-leader of Connecticut's Sunday, and we are in the process of creating a vision of that weekend, not just Sunday, but that weekend, with an expectation and hope that every single town and community in Connecticut will have Sunday events on Saturday the 21st, Saturday the 20th, and then on Friday night or Saturday or Sunday on Sabbath, there will be worship in all faith communities across Connecticut. And on Sunday afternoon, we're going to bring people together to a university campus for a major festival of the sun. My theory about all of this is that by September, if not by tomorrow, everybody needs something positive to focus on. We are so overwhelmed with the negativity, the militarization. I mean, I could go on and I won't. You know what we're overwhelmed with. Imagine us coming together in this visionary festival of the sun that celebrates God's gifts to us. This is a moment for the United Church of Christ to shine. This is a moment for us not only to pay attention on Sunday morning of Sunday, but to pay attention to what's happening in our own local communities. Who's going to be organizing in your community? Maybe your church could take the lead, and on the Saturday before Sunday, you could offer some kind of teach-in or invite your state representative and senator to come and host a town hall on renewable energy. Who knows? There are 1,000 things you could do, especially those involving children and youth. I do this work because I'm a great grandmother, because I don't want my grandchildren and my great grandchildren to inherit the world they're currently set to inherit. I do this work because I'm a person of faith and a person of hope. I have found over time, I occasionally get invited to preach around. I call it lascivious preaching. I preach around at various churches across Connecticut, mostly UCC, but not only. and I preach a lot about climate change. It's interesting the response I get from people in church after church after church. Laity will come up to me afterward and say, at last somebody's telling the truth. Somebody's telling it like it is about the suffering in the midst of this world related to climate change. But I always end those sermons with signs of hope. I'm usually preaching on Genesis 1 because it's so easy, frankly. And when I'm preaching from Genesis 1, there is nothing like the sign of hope of that creation story, especially the one that talks about how God places the greater light in the heavens to rule the day and the lesser light in the heavens to rule the night, and places them in charge of day and night. These are gifts of God, and it is so easy to be a sign of hope when we talk about all that God has given us and about the incredible peaceableness of harnessing the energy that God has given us instead of burning other gifts that God has given us. Combustion is violent, harnessing is peaceful. There is tremendous hope and power and love and joy in this kind of preaching. And I really want to encourage you not only to celebrate on Sunday with a Sunday service, but to think about the ways in which you, as members of churches, can empower people in your local community to take on these issues and transform life in your town or your city through the work of renewable energy. It's a joy to share this with you.
Thank you, Davida. I think that is some terrific material there for preachers. I'm working on that rainbow right now in my head. I like that being a sign and symbol of hope. Thank you so much for that offering. To close out this outstanding lineup of speakers today, we have the Reverend Michael Malcolm, who serves as the Executive Director for the People's Justice Council and Alabama Interfaith Power and Light. Michael, what thoughts do you have to share with us as we consider this call to act and to mobilize?
Yeah, Brooks, today we have heard three calls that bring together our theological framework. One is that of ecology, the other is that of stewardship, and finally that other one, that last one, is that of justice. When you bring the three together, you find that there's another call that centers us. It centers us as people of faith and communities of faith. It is a call to lead. It is a call to show society how to live within our ecosystem. This call to leadership is not a call to lordship. It is a call to show the world what love looks like. Yes, a call to show how care is embodied. Sunday is a day for us to put our leadership on display. At a time when it seems like our society is disoriented, we have an opportunity to allow Spirit to use us to be representatives of its power to orient us. Through the power of Spirit and communion, of fellowship with creation, we will continue to thrive and flourish. However, our path of inhospitality, greed, and selfishness will ultimately lead to destruction. Therefore, we must move from being examples of stewardship. We must become models and monuments of stewardship. Today, we are speaking of justice. Sunday is a day of doing justice. While celebrating the justice shown by the sun shines on the just and the unjust. It is indiscriminate and nurturing. Sunday must be every day, and we must get there one day at a time. Thank you for being the leaders and stewards that you are and will become. I pray that you have a great showing for Sunday. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Michael. We are not short on inspiration today. Thank you to each of our speakers for your powerful words. We now have an opportunity for any questions from the audience, any thoughts that might be, been stirred or sparked by our speakers today. We would love to hear from you. Jim, I'd love to hear if you have any preaching tips for those who will be stepping into the pulpit.
Well, first I want to thank the other speakers because we've heard some really valuable stuff here. And one of the themes that emerges from what I have heard is the desire, to put it quite explicitly, the desire to make what happens on Sunday in September of 2025 a contrast to what happened back in 1970 in churches. And just for an historic moment, for those of you that maybe weren't even born then, there was very little church participation in the first Earth Day. And thank God we've come a long way since then in terms of churches embracing a Sunday celebration sometime around April 22nd. But this now is the opportunity for people of every faith perspective to really say, oh my goodness, this is God's creation at stake, and we claim to be people of faith. Now is the time to bear witness.
Jeff, I want to follow up on that because you raised a real good issue, or you made a good statement around the church's activity when it came down to Earth Day. And I'll ask this of both you and Reverend Crabtree. Why do you think it was that the church wasn't involved in Earth Day? And how do you see it different today?
Davida, you want to go first?
Sure, I think the word is sin. Now, I don't usually preach about sin. I got enough of that in my childhood. But I will say that I think the failure to pay attention and the ridiculous belief that somehow we human beings are the crown of creation and are set here to dominate. I When I preach from Genesis 1, it's usually I usually start with it's about stewardship, not exploitation. It's about dominion, not domination, and that usually gets me into some pretty complicated stuff. But I get a lot of head nodding because people understand that they've been misled. They've been misled theologically. And while we had in the UCC back in the 1970s some brilliant theologians and brilliant pastors and brilliant laity in the pews, still they didn't put it together. We have to put it together because this is a moral crisis. This is an absolute moral crisis. This flies in the face of everything in the biblical text about our responsibility for one another, for earth, for the creatures of. I'm sorry, I'm preaching.
That's all right.
Listen, you're amongst preachers.
It's a theological crisis.
Right.
That's going on now. It's a theological emergency. We've heard the term climate emergency, but now it's time to hear from our churches and synagogues and mosques. What is the theological emergency that is going on here? And for God's sakes, it's God's creation at risk. Why? Well, back to Davida's opening point, because of sin. And in this case, because of what used to be called acquisitiveness and now is simply called greed, accumulation of power, accumulation of wealth, etc. It's high time for churches to participate in this opportunity. And let me just add one other thing. For part of the reason that we've been talking about the past 4 or 5 minutes it's important for you as church folk to realize the folks out there in your towns and communities that may be involved in Sunday, they might never think, oh, maybe the church could host the event that we're talking about. They might be scratching their head like, where the heck can we do this? And in fact, a group of EVs could gather in the church parking lot or or an assembly hall in the church sanctuary. And I just have to say from my considerable experience, it's often the case that community organizers in the environmental movement would never think that a church or a synagogue or a mosque would want to participate. It's up to us to let them know all of what Davida was just talking about.
Great, great. This is a rich conversation. I want to lift up some comments that have been made in the chat and some questions, and I'll do it in this way. I think right now we have a real opportunity to connect some dots and to point out some things where there's some overlaps and some synergies. And I'll begin this by saying this. There's that question about season of creation. Some people may not be familiar with the season of creation, but it's this, you know, call to for a new liturgical season from the World Council of Churches and other organizations. It's quite popular in some denominations, and it runs from September 1st to October 4th this year. It lines up with a number of things like St. Francis of Assisi Day and so forth. And so the theme this year is peace with creation. And now I want to emphasize that because that's important in a couple of ways. We often think of the peace movement and the climate movement, but we all know that, you know, that's shorthand, and these movements are all very much like this. And this is an opportunity to really lift this up. It just so happens that September 21st, Sunday, is also the International Day of Peace that was established by the United Nations. And it just so happens that also the one Sunday before is Just Peace Sunday. We have a lot of Just Peace churches that are lifting up the issues of peace. And so you've got two Sundays in a row where there's just going to be this great opportunity to link peace and climate. And, you know, it doesn't stop there. There's all sorts of things that we can be bringing in this, every justice issue, every peace issue, all of these things interconnect here. And so this is a real opportunity to draw people in, to connect those dots. And so for our speakers today, any things you would want to say as people are thinking about connecting these dots, realizing how these movements intersect? Any thoughts from any of you?
Yeah, I'd be glad to just say a little bit. In third act, we often talk about how you cannot separate democracy issues from environmental issues, that they are one issue. We have different words for them, but the truth is no oligarch cares at all about the planet. And so our work on democracy, the answer to the question in the Q&A is, yeah, we're organizing for this coming Saturday for No King's Day, because a king is not going to care about the earth or about the subjects of the kingdom. And so you can't separate these issues. Our language gets in the way for us understanding that this is a singular effort that we must be committed to.
Doc, I would push back on our language getting in the way. I think our language does get in the way. I think that a part of white supremacy and racism causes us to separate language. But the reality is, we've been saying the term that captures what you just said, and it's environmental justice. Environmental justice. It actually captures all of our lives and everything therein. We move that language away from environmental justice and put it to climate justice so that we can make it inaccessible for certain people and resources inaccessible for certain people. But the reality is we're talking about environmental justice. And if you look at environmental justice for what the context of environmental justice is, it is loving your neighbor, which is our foundation, one of our foundational beliefs, in particular in the Christian faith, that we are to love our neighbors. And so for me, I don't understand why we ain't the main ones marching in the street. I don't know why we ain't the ones that, I mean, I'm not advocating for violence, but January the 6th, that should have been church folks riding, trying to make things change because we ain't been listening to. But the reality is, I asked the question, why isn't the church as active, and why weren't they active around Earth Day, and what's happening now? And I would say that there's still a remnant of us that are participating in things such as an Earth Day, such as a Sunday. But then the greater majority of us is still stuck in a place where we spend more time looking at how to better ourselves and using the Holy Spirit
Right.
as something to make us feel good and to some type of self-improvement device rather than it being the power that causes society to shift. If we would allow for the Holy Spirit to use us to cause society to shift, it will shift. Everybody, regardless of if you want to say it or not, everybody believes and is somehow influenced by somebody or something that is moral. We need to be the ones that's the loudest right now. When things are so immoral, we should be the ones with the megaphones. Because we are supposed to be in the ambassadors for those things that are moral. I've said enough. I don't know if I was a speaker or not, but
Of course, you're a
Uh,
speaker, Michael.
yeah,
My
I
goodness.
think
I don't know where I lined up on the panel. We mixed this one up. We did a remix on this one.
That's called the Holy Spirit speaking.
Right.
yes, I think
Right.
many of us are feeling the Holy Spirit now. And to build off of what you're saying, I want to throw in a question from the audience here. Uh, one of our audience members says, Move On is planning demonstrations for this Saturday. The first Earth Day was many demonstrations. Are you planning to demonstrate? And Jim or anyone or Davita, would you like to kind of address that one?
So I think, first of all, the short answer to the question is yes. And the broader answer is every setting which is participating in Sunday in September, on the September 21st, they're going to do whatever it is the organizers of that particular event in that particular location feel is appropriate. I guarantee you, plenty of them will include protests. But there will, that's maybe one side of spectrum. And on the other side of the spectrum, there's going to be teach-ins. And as I said earlier, there's going to be EV parades and electric bike tryouts and things like that. And everything you can imagine in between, including worship that borrows from Davida and Michael in terms of content. So as I said, the short answer, yes, it will include protests, but it's not going to be a day of protest the way that this coming Saturday, No King's Day, is going to be. It's going to be a celebration of the fact that our Creator has given us all the energy we need, and our scientists have unlocked that energy. And the only thing that creates the climate crisis is the greed of corporations and shareholders who insist on going forward in a way that will kill their shareholders.
Right.
Let's be clear. And when I say something as ironic as that, I want everybody to know I'm actually quoting a member of the Security and Exchange Commission who, back in 2011, gave a lecture. He was appointed by Ronald Reagan. And his point was, if we continue to allow corporations to produce climate change, those corporations will kill their shareholders. That's not how it's supposed to work. So, all right, now I'm preaching. I'll stop. Anyone else?
I would just like to add, thank you, Jim, for that, because I'm absolutely with you totally on that. I would just like to add that in Connecticut, we made the decision because we do demonstrations and protest marches and all those kinds of things all the time. It's very common in Connecticut. And we've decided not to eliminate that, and some local communities may choose to do it. But we're seeing Sunday as the way we build the base for a massive movement in Connecticut to be a bulwark for renewable energy and a bulwark against the Trump administration and what it stands for. And we think that by focusing positively, and I'm big on demonstrations and marches, been doing it all my life, but we think that by focusing positively, we are really going to build relationships not only with individuals, but with organizations and with movements and with allies and partners, with people in school systems and youth clubs and legislators and town councils, all across the board, and build this movement. This is a chance to really, really build the base of a massive movement to take us into the future of renewable energy.
Right. Thank you. This continues to be a rich conversation. I'm just going to throw out a question because I occasionally hear this question posed in different ways in different places. But, to think about September 20th and 21st in the context of the current administration and so forth, a lot of people are asking, what actions kind of make sense? What's going to be effective? And of course, we want a full range of actions and strategies and tactics. But what would some of you say about like why this? Why is this important? What within this context today? What's sort of the value, the strategic value of this?
Jim, you want to take it for
Well, I'm
third
glad
act?
I'm glad to start off and just say you could look at this weekend, September 20th and 21st, as a kind of y'all come. And I'm hardly saying anything that anybody listening to this doesn't already know. America needs a y'all come opportunity in the context we are living in now. And in fact, the only thing that will be effective in pushing back the authoritarian onslaught we are now subject to will be the showing up of y'all, the showing up of everyone. And what could be a better rallying point than free energy from God? I just can't imagine a better rallying point. And oh, by the way, it turns out the reddest of red states are the ones who understand this the best and are currently more dependent on sustainably generated electricity than any of the blue states. That our nation is so filled with irony around this issue. It's time to cut through the lies and cut through the misinformation and embrace a future in which our children and grandchildren can thrive.
And I would just add to that part of the reason third act is focusing us very much on local and state is because we're basically saying, let's not give them our energy. I don't mean we shouldn't protest. We should protest. We need to take a stand. We need to be out there in every way. But when it comes to renewable energy, being able to focus on state policy, state programs, local communities, and the choices that local communities are making about how long it takes to permit solar, for instance. There are all kinds of things where we can move this forward in local and state situations when we just have to say, they're going to do what they're going to do, but we're going to do this. And I think this part of it is ministry for me has always been about partnership. It's never been about just serving the local church or the setting that I'm called to. It's about building partnerships outside the church, in part because we're bringing good news to the people. It's a form of preaching without preaching. And this is one of those moments.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Michael, go ahead, jump in.
Yeah, real quick, Brooks. Jim spoke of saying y'all come, and immediately my thought was y'all come to what? And I would like to offer to stretch this a bit and not just have it or y'all come, but y'all come to celebrate. But what are we celebrating? We're celebrating all of the work that has led up to this point. And that means you've got to go to work now. Not on the day that we celebrate, you just show up to the party. That's cool. But if we start doing a little bit here and a little bit there now, if you can design some community cleanups now, if you can go in and you can design a day that you go in and talk to your legislators with your congregation to advocate for clean energy, to advocate for solar, to advocate for wind. Then when we come to the day Sunday, we celebrate in huge fashion because we've led up to that moment. But it's the leading up to that I think is the most influential. And let me emphasize the leading part. Lead, 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 lead. Now I got into my hook. Lead. I need y'all to lead because we need leadership more now than any time that I can remember in my 50 years of living. We need leadership from our communities of faith who know what it's like to care, who know what it's like to love, who know what it means to do justice and to love mercy and to walk humbly. We need you leading now, not sitting back and observing, but leading.
And not just within the congregation.
Absolutely.
Embrace it all.
Thanks. I think we have time for at least one more question here. I want to frame what this is about. I mean, there's lots of ways we could talk about the significance of this. And Jim, I love your y'all come message. One aspect of it I want to kind of unpack a little bit is the visibility aspect. When we think about what's currently visible in the media, what's currently visible in our society, and what are we trying to make visible on September 20th and 21st? And why is it important that we're making something visible on September 20th and 21st? Could any of you speak to what is it that we really want to kind of make visible on that day in our local communities? What kind of public statement are we trying to make? I get you celebrating the clean energy, but what's sort of the significance of that within the context of today is what I'm trying to draw out.
Well, I'm going to jump in first on this one and say something that I know almost everybody listening to this will understand the connection immediately, but it hasn't been said yet. And the thing that I think we need to recognize as really significant as an outcome of this will be for progressive Christian voices to be standing up and making sure we get news coverage so that the onslaught of Christian nationalism can be put in its place as a tiny minority of power-hungry radicals, for lack of a better word. So that's one thing. I'm sure Davida and Michael will have something more to say.
Michael, go for it.
I prefer you go for it, Doc, because I'm still stuck on the radical. I didn't want to say radical when
Yeah, I guess for me, it is Christian faith is about embodiment. That's what the incarnation tells us. Christian faith is about embodiment. This is a moment when we can embody our understanding, our deep theological, contextual understanding. This is where this is not the only moment when we embody the faith, but when it comes to climate change, the generations of my granddaughters and grandson and my great granddaughter, twin great granddaughters, do not have any sense that Christian faith is embodied. It is, those generations have not seen it. And this moment on Sunday and leading up to it is a moment when the incarnation becomes something other than the crown of creation and becomes all of us embodying the Christ spirit.
Yeah. So I don't know if I'm the right person to answer this because Reverend Jim and Reverend Brooks know I cuss. And so I'm gonna try my best because we got grandmama on the thing, not to
Hey,
use
I
my
cuss too.
not to use my normal language, but beloveds, somebody's got to be able to say in plain language that this isn't right. This isn't right. Where we are right now, and the fact that policy has now, and by policy I mean our political system has now gave us the middle finger. Those who fight for the environment in a real sense, just to be blunt with you all, they gave us the middle finger and told us that what we value does not matter to them. And at some point, somebody got to stand up and say that this is some bull. You know the rest.
Yep.
And you know, who best to do it than the preacher? Who best to do it than those people who are in leadership in your communities of faith, who have that influence to have those plain conversations, those everyday conversations. I spoke about the language not being manageable earlier, but those of us who can interpret that highfalutin policy wonk language to bring it in and make it manageable for our everyday people need to have everyday conversations to say, this is some bull, and here's why. And maybe perhaps even let that be your Bible study. What about having a Sunday sermon and talk about some of the things that's happening in your communities, like them data centers that's getting ready to come, that's going to raise your bill sky high? And what about them people in your congregation who can't afford to pay the bill right now? What are they going to do? What about the folks that's dealing with these storms as we're entering a hurricane season? And the person that's over FEMA said they don't even know that we have hurricanes, hurricane season. What about having some conversations on how to survive the storm, practically and spiritually? Jesus spoke in natural terms. Jesus spoke in practical terms. It wasn't just about doing so. When Jesus turned water into wine, it wasn't just about this miraculous. It was to help to keep the celebration, keep the party going on. It was showing sustainability. Right. Beloveds, you can take it and make it be what it need to be. But we've got to start talking about these things in a real and practical sense that mobilizes people to action so that folks can see our spirit and not just hear about it.
Wow, I wish as a seminary student I had heard the Reverend Michael Malcolm hold forth on truth-telling language as I was grappling with the meaning of hermeneutics and epistemology, and I can't even remember how to say some of those words. But thank you so much that you have given us a new way to think about language and the importance of what we are called to do in this moment. It's much appreciated. Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end, and we're coming towards the end of our time today. I do want to let people know that we'll have the recording of this on YouTube and make it available to people. We'll have links that were shared, make that available in the post-webinar email. All that will be there for you. And I also want to lift up what will be taking the place of our next monthly webinar. On July 23rd, we have partnered up with Charles Lee, who many of you know recently retired from the EPA as the senior advisor on environmental justice, along with many others, Dolly Burwell, sometimes called the mother of the environmental justice movement. They'll be coming together as we hold a service of appreciation for federal environmental justice staff and grantees. For communities around the country, environmental justice staff at the EPA and other federal agencies, along with grantee organizations, they've been embodying many of the most cherished and important values held in our society. They protect our health and our environment. They serve as public servants, deeply concerned about the well-being of others, especially the most vulnerable. And so we'll be taking time to hold this service appreciation for all that they do for us and for everyone in our society. So we'll have Charles Lee speak, we'll have Richard Moore speak, we'll have people who currently are in federal positions speak. And so looking forward to that. Join us again for that on Wednesday, July 23rd at 1 p.m. Eastern. We are grateful that all of you joined us for today. It is terrific to hear from these outstanding speakers. Let's give some heart emojis and love to our speakers today. It was really appreciated, everything that you had to offer. Lots of inspiration today. Take care, everyone, and God bless. We look forward to seeing you in July.